So in this video, we're going to finish up our menu system by creating a game over menu. And why don't we go ahead and just see what our game over menu will do for us. I'll go ahead and press play here. So I'll start the game, and I've upped the penalty rate so we can get to our game over screen faster. So it'll slowly fade to white, and then we'll get our game over screen, and we're left with two options. We can either restart the game, and when we restart the game, we're taken back to the start menu so we can pick between one player and two player. Perhaps you wanted to add another player. So we're repurposing our start menu as a way to restart with new options. And we can start again. Let's get another look at it. And this nice fade to white. Then we show our game over screen. And this quick game button, it does have code attached to it, but since we're not in a standalone app, then it doesn't actually close out Unity and close the game. But as soon as we build this game out and the game is in its own standalone app, then the quick game will close out of the app for us. Also, if the game was being hosted on a web player, quick game would not work there as well, because all you would have to do is just close out the tab at that point for that game. All right, so why don't we see what we have to accomplish here? So the first thing we're going to have to do is build our actual game menu UI elements. And then we're going to have to activate the menu when we actually meet our lose condition. We already figured out a lose condition in a video or two ago, so that'll be a pretty easy one. And then we need to change a few variables, a few values, deactivate a few things to stop the game from playing while we go transition into our game over menu. And then we're going to add our reset option that'll take us to the beginning of the game again. And we'll add our quit option right there. So we're going to go ahead and build our actual game over menu. And I'm going to just basically base it off of our start menu. A lot of what's going to be going on with our game over menu is going to carry over from what we've done in our start menu canvas. So I'm going to hit Control and D and just copy that. And then we'll go in and name it. I'm going to call this game over menu canvas, or actually I guess I should call it game over menu, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and hide my start menu canvas, so when I go in and start editing my game over menu, I'll be able to see what's going on, and I won't be confused between the two. So we'll change our title text to game over, and we can even change title text to game over text. And then my buttons are going to change their purpose. We'll change player one's button to restart, and player two button, we'll change that to quit. But we're not done yet with these buttons. Let's go ahead and expand them, and we have to change the text options inside of our buttons too. All right, so I'll select my restart text after renaming it, and I'll have to add in its new text value. I'll collapse my restart button, and then I'm going to have to in the future change this on click functionality, but we'll get to that after we build out our menu and create some of our code for that. And quit text, I need to go into my quit text and say quit game. All right, great. So our start menu is now built based off of our game over menu is now built based off of our start menu. So that'll be really nice, really fast way to do that. So the next step in our game over lesson is to actually start coding in, activating our game over menu. And we're going to do it really straightforward first, and then we'll go in and refine its functionality and the aesthetics of it. So I'm going to double click on Game Manager and bring up my Game Manager script. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new public canvas variable. So right beside start screen canvas, let's say comma game over screen canvas. We'll hit Control S and save that. So we'll go back into my game now. Let's select my game manager. And right over here we have a start screen canvas slot. or game over screen canvas. I'm getting these two mixed up too much. We're doing game over. So why don't I just go ahead and move my game over canvas object right into my game over screen canvas public variable. So we can see I have my start menu and my game over menu both assigned in my inspector now. So I'm going to collapse that. So the next thing I'm going to do in my hierarchy, I need to hide game over and make reinactivate my start menu. So I'll go to my start menu canvas. I'll activate it. Now we can see we have two menus laid on top of each other. I'll deactivate my game over menu because we don't want that to be shown at the beginning of the game. All right, so when those two things are nicely deactivated and activated, we're going to go into our void game over function right over here. We already made a game over function from our last video. And for right now, I'm going to comment out this line of code that reloads the scene. And I'm going to program some new things under it. So we have quite a few things to do here. First, we need to fade in the white overlay. And we already have a function built for fades. So we have a fade overlay function. So why don't we say, and let's see what the parameters it needs. It's going to take a Boolean to say if we want to fade in or fade out, and the actual graphic that we want to fade. So we'll say fade overlay, and then why don't we say true? We want to fade in our white screen, and then what do we want to fade? Our white fade image. And there we go. Fade overlay. Let's take care of our red overlay now. And this time we're going to fade out our red overlay because we want to switch the white and the red. Red fade image. So that takes care of our overlays. We're switching from the red overlay of the death scene to the white overlay of our menu. Now we need to enable our game over screen canvas. So that'll be pretty easy. We'll just say game over screen canvas. That's that variable we just made. Dot game object. So we're now pointing at the game object itself. And then set active to true. And that'll make the game menu actually become visible on our screen. And then why don't we go ahead and deactivate the player. So we'll say player object dot set active equals false. So that way the player won't be moving around anymore. He just won't exist. And then why don't we deactivate our clock graphic? We no longer want to count the time when the game's over. So we'll just say clock text dot transform. We're going to do the same thing, find the parent of our clock text to deactivate the whole clock graphic in general. So we'll say clock text dot transform dot parent dot game object. We've done this before. Dot set active equals false. We've done that little bit of line of code before right up here in our start game. We're just now using that same line of code and setting it to false so it deactivates our clock. And then we're going to stop spawning obstacles and power-ups. We don't want any more obstacles or power-ups to start spawning. So we'll just turn their obstacle spawn counts and power-up spawn counts. We'll just set those equal to 0 now. So we'll say obstacle spawn count per wave equals 0, and power-up spawn count will equal 0. That'll keep our power-ups from spawning. And then next, just to make sure that our white screen is clear of any clutter, why don't we go ahead and deactivate the boundaries of our playfield. We're basically just deactivating everything in our game scene. And we're going to use a for loop to do that. We'll say for int I equals 0. And we're going to go through our boundary array. So we'll say our counter is less than boundaries. That's the boundary array we made a few videos ago. And then the length of that array, that's when we'll stop. And then we'll increment our counter like so. And then what we're going to say is we're going to say boundaries, and then whatever loop we're going through in our boundaries I dot game object dot set active equals false. So that'll go through our array's boundary and deactivate each one that's in our array. Good old syntax errors. Let's see what I misspelled here. I did a comma instead of a semicolon. There we go. All right, so everything's looking good. Why don't I go into my game manager and let's see, where is our boundary amount? Why don't I set that to like 3 so we can get to the game over screen faster? I'll press play, do a single player, and we'll just let the boundaries kill me. All right, so that works pretty good. You know what? I think I'd rather have a pause for my game over screen. I don't think I like the way that works. I want my game over screen to only appear after my my white has fully come into view there. So we're going to refine our game over menu by only showing our options to a little bit after our white menu, our white overlay comes full-fledged in. But before we control the the game over menu, just pop it in, why don't we add a little bit more functionality to our fade function so we can control how dramatic we want the fade ins and the fade outs to become in our game. So why don't we go ahead and mess with our fade overlay function. And to do that, I'm going to add an extra parameter of type float. And I'm going to say, we're going to add a new parameter called fade time. And instead of just hard coding 2 seconds into this crossfade function right here, I'm going to say fade time. All right. And we'll do the same down here. So now we'll be able to pass in any kind of value we want to control the basic speed of our fades. So that means we're going to have to come up here and we're going to have to find every instance in which we used our fade overlay function. So I think we do it in start game right here. Yep, there's that fade overlay. So we'll use a comma and add in a new value here. So we'll pass in 2 seconds, and that's the white fade out when we first start the game. So over here in our game over, why don't we try to make this a little bit more dramatic maybe? Let's make it take 3.5 seconds to fade the white image in, and maybe a little bit slower to fade or faster to fade the red out. So we'll say 0.5 f to fade the red out. So we'll see more white than red. So there we go there. And let's see what that gives us. All right, a little bit slower there. I think I might have made the fade in of the white a little bit too slow, so I'll do 2.5 instead of 2.0. And we'll do the red. I think I made that a little too fast. So we'll do 1 second there. Now I'm just kind of testing and tweaking what kind of fade values I want to fade in and out of. Just die already. Boom. That would be more dramatic if the game over just didn't pop in automatically. So now why don't we create a coroutine for activating our game over menu so we can wait a little bit before we pop it up. All right. So right here is where we're activating our game over menu. So why don't we say, right, I'm going to comment that out and say start coroutine. And I haven't made my coroutine yet, but I know what I'm going to call it. We'll call it enable game over. There we go. So I've called this start row coroutine. I've called this coroutine rather called enable game over, but I haven't made the actual coroutine. So I'm going to come all the way to the bottom with my other coroutine, and we'll say enable game over. And we'll just do the kind of the basic same logic as up here. We'll wait a few seconds. And you know what? I think I want to be able to pass in a parameter so I can control exactly how much I wait. So I'll say float wait time. And we'll see how long we want to wait until we activate our game over screen. I'm going to come back up here. You see where I have this commented out? We're going to copy and paste that and just shove it right underneath this new coroutine. And let's get rid of those comment bars right there. So this traverse back up to my start row coroutine to enable my game over. You know what? I'm actually going to put that at the end of this function because it'll be the last thing we do. And I need to pass in a value here. So after 3 seconds, we'll enable the game over menu. And hopefully that start coroutine or that coroutine will work pretty good. So why don't we just test this out? We started our game. All right. Getting hit by stuff. The next one should do it. So we're fading to white. And there we go. There's our game over. So that looks a little bit cooler, a little bit more dramatic of a. I mean, it's not like Oscar Academy Award winning level of drama, but it's better than what it was, right? So now we need to figure out what to do with these two buttons. So we're going to have to add a restart function right over in here. So right below our game over function that we just made, let's make a public void restart game option, or function rather. It'll be used for our restart option. And in this restart game function, we're just going to take this line of code right here. And this is our restart scene code. And that's all our restart game is going to do. It's just going to reload the entire game. And now that we're here, why don't we go ahead. Actually, we'll do that in a second. So the restart game function is going to be really easy. We had to create a separate function because let's select my game over menu canvas restart button. So on my onClick function right here, we'll go to start game, game manager, and then we can see my very own restart game option right there. That was the function we just made. So now we'll be able to restart our game when our game over menu pops up. Restart game, and then we'll go back to the title menu, and we can pick if we want to do a 2-player game or continue with 1-player game. There we go. And it just continues over and over again until you feel like quitting. So now why don't we just add a quit game function right underneath our restart. It will be another public void function, and we'll say quit game. And this one will be another simple line of code. We'll simply just say application dot quit and add the parentheses there, and that's all she wrote. We won't be able to test this, but trust me, it works. Whenever we build out our game, we'll have that functionality working for us. All right, well, let's troubleshoot some stuff. And we're going to come up here, and we forgot to put the semicolon after quit. All right, cool. And 5 error messages are gone, have left over just 1 semicolon. All right, so our game is pretty much done. It's not the flashiest game, but it's got great gameplay. It's got some really interesting kind of mechanics going on with the boundary shrinking, and we got some functioning menus. And all we have left to do now is maybe explore the possibility of adding a second player. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Game over.